Welcome to episode 6 of the podcast. Today we chat to Chloe from Be Kind Coco. We speak about her journey in becoming a blogger, why shopping ethically matters to her, as well as her pet peeves with the perceptions of fast fashion. Enjoy the pod. So tell us a bit about Chloe behind Be Kind Coco.
Hello, my name is Chloe. My nickname that people have given me throughout life was Coco, so that's where my username and my blog name comes from. I'm from England. I moved to Melbourne about 3 years ago. I'm a freelance graphic designer / ethical lifestyle blogger. I'm a cat person and I'm a tea person.
Yeah, I saw you love your cats. You just got one cat at the moment?
My partner and I foster cats. We don't have one at the moment, but
Okay.
yeah, we are part-time cat owners, I suppose, because we don't know where
Okay, awesome.
life will take us necessarily in the future, and I just love cats, so I convinced him to let me foster cats.
That's fantastic. He's very understanding. So you briefly mentioned your blog, Be Kind Coco. Sort of what made you want to start the blog and what piqued your interest initially in ethical fashion?
My blog. So my blog started from a place of naivety. And while I focus on fashion and waste-free living today, it began kind of oddly for me with makeup, which I was never that into. And when I was growing up, I was super against one particular makeup brand called MAC Cosmetics. I can't remember if it's in Australia or not, but I knew they tested on animals, and I learned that animals were used for testing. And not only that, they were terminated after testing. And so I knew I didn't want to buy from a company that essentially killed animals for makeup to make myself look pretty. And I didn't realize that half of the drugstore makeup that I owned was also tested on animals, and I just didn't know it at the time. So I kind of learned from that my own naivety had led to animal suffering, and I didn't want that to be my excuse for causing pain. So I basically thought to myself, now that I know better, I can do better. So I started off learning all I could about cruelty-free and vegan beauty. And then I saw this documentary that I'm sure most people into ethical fashion have seen, The True Cost. And
it's fantastic.
For anyone listening, if you haven't seen it already, hopefully it's still on Netflix. I'm not too sure. And from there, I basically just entered a black hole of searching for information, and I wanted to share everything I'd learned. So I wanted to put everything onto a blog and an Instagram and a YouTube channel any way I could to try and get this information out there in a way that was fun and educational and not too much information. So I wanted people to make an informed decision about the big and the small choices that they make every day.
Yeah, fantastic. And just zeroing back into the cosmetic points that you made, do you think a lot of women who do shop sort of the less ethical cosmetic brands, do you feel as though that they willingly overlook that, or they purely just don't know about the animal testing? What do you sort of put that down to?
If they're anything like me, then it may have started, or it might be willing to overlook it, because I don't think anyone does anything from the point of view that they want to cause pain or that they're evil or anything like as big as that. Everyone's got good and bad in them, but I don't think many people would consciously choose to shop with a makeup brand that they knew tested on mice or dogs or cats or anything like that. So I think it is basically overlooked, but also it's not something that these makeup companies, they don't make a big deal about it.
No. Yeah. Keep it under their wraps. And I think a big thing, and even just sort of zeroing back a bit more to ethical fashion, it's more so the severity that people maybe don't understand. I think people know there's human rights abuses that go on or environmental destruction, but I think people don't fully appreciate the degree to which it happens. And maybe it might be the same with what we're talking about there with the animal testing and makeup, how people might know it occurs, but do they know to the extent that it occurs? And it seems like for yourself, once you sort of found out more and more about it, you just didn't want to go back to your old ways, which is really commendable.
Absolutely. It was everywhere. I just couldn't believe how much I was finding out.
No, that's very interesting to hear. And sort of going back to ethical fashion again, it's something you're very passionate about, and it's sort of, is there a direct link to what you learned about cosmetics to why you're so passionate about ethical fashion? And more importantly, what prompted you to start writing about it?
Yeah. Well, when I studied in the past, I studied journalism, which led me to making a blog and therefore writing about things. And I wasn't too sure what I was passionate about for a long time until beauty and ethical fashion and everything came about, it was finally something that I really wanted to put my heart and soul in. And really similarly to the beauty, it was ethical fashion and fashion in general was something I kind of overlooked. And I used to be not into fashion at all. I was clueless about style. I essentially avoided it, which meant that I avoided learning about it.
Okay.
And so I was really unsure of my own style. And I only ever bought fast fashion because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on something because I didn't know how long I would actually like it. And
Yep.
I actually assumed that machines made a lot of clothes as opposed to the reality, which is just people who are treated like machines making clothes all day, every day. And once I learned that it was people and how they were being treated and how little they were being paid, I couldn't bear the thought that it was happening and that I was supporting it.
Yeah, that's it's really humbling. I think a lot of people go down that same rabbit hole. And in terms of writing about it too, is more so you just wanted to share that knowledge with people who maybe were in the same position 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Is that sort of the ethos behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really did come from a bubble of not knowing anything at all about it.
Yeah,
So I knew that there must be a lot of people coming from the same place as me.
yeah,
And I wanted to make them know that it's okay to be making these changes and to
yeah,
make those changes slowly and surely and yeah,
yeah.
go forward making the best decision they can.
No, that's fantastic. And nowadays, you're an expert in the industry, especially when you talk about in Melbourne, Australia. You're one of the more popular influencers in the space. And because you do know so much now, do you have any pet peeves with the ethical fashion industry?
Yes.
Yep.
The big things obviously being people treated unfairly, but
Yep.
there's something that I see more often with my friends and talking to people in real life, and they have this opinion that that ethical fashion is too expensive. It annoys me because I used to share that opinion, but also because buying habits these days suggest that we need a new bikini or a new dress every season, or sorry, a bikini for every season and like a new dress for every event.
Yep.
And so, yes, ethical fashion costs more, but to be quite brutal about it, more people could afford, say, a $200 dress that they will love and cherish for years if they didn't spend $20 on a one off dress every other week for whatever Friday night event is going on.
Yep.
And most ethical fashion pieces actually have a far lower markup than fast fashion pieces, just so that they can compete with fast fashion prices. And the business itself takes a far lower cut than fast fashion businesses because these sorry, one second. Because ethical fashion brands put people over profit and they pay their workers fairly at every stage of the production. So that addresses people putting money aside to buy something that's more expensive. But I think people forget that the most ethical clothing in the world is whatever is currently sitting in their closet. Making the most out of whatever you own is amazing, and the next best option is shopping secondhand, which requires no extra production and the price tag is often very low. So, however, someone wants to support ethical fashion, there is absolutely a way they can do it, and that excites me so much. So, yeah, that's why it annoys me because there are these solutions as long as you think about it with a more conscious mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree because I think a lot of people don't see their clothes as investments. And I think what you're trying to say here is that, it may be expensive on the first hit. You might spend $20 on that dress, but if you're going to have that dress for 10 years, then what is it, $20 per year as opposed to $20 per season? So I think that's a fantastic point, Chloe. And hopefully more people can adopt that same mindset as you and, reshape how they think about the cost of ethical fashion. And
I hope
you,
so.
yeah, for sure. And I know you've given a bit of advice already, but another question I wanted to ask was, what advice would you give those looking to embrace a more ethical wardrobe?
Okay, embracing a more ethical wardrobe. I guess I have to think about the steps that I took and also the mistakes I made.
Yeah,
And firstly, I'd say deep dive into your own wardrobe and discover what you love about it and what might necessarily be lacking. And from that, I would suggest making a list because I never used to op shop that much when I lived in England. My mum was very much into shopping secondhand, and I think my form of rebellion was being very anti-secondhand. But as soon as
Okay.
I found Australian op shops, there were so many amazing things in there, so I just jumped straight into it. But because of that, I think I bought things that I didn't necessarily need. And so
Yeah.
my one tip, if you're doing anything like that, or even shopping online, is to have a list and don't try not to stray from that list. If there's something amazing, obviously, think
Yeah.
about it. But
Similar
having
to
a list
grocery
would have
shopping.
helped me so much.
Yeah, I was just going to
Yes.
say it's similar to grocery shopping. If you go to the supermarket aimlessly, you end up buying all this stuff that you don't need, that you're never going to eat, and it goes off. Or if you go
So
there with the clear action plan,
yeah,
it
so similar.
makes a lot of sense.
I
Yeah,
always make
sorry,
a list
continue.
for groceries.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, continue what you're saying.
What other tips do I have? I would say, since everyone's on social media, it is great to follow people and accounts that promote ethical fashion.
Yep.
If you're already following fashion bloggers, you might want to stop doing so if they predominantly feature fast fashion. They can
Yep.
be useful for looking for style inspiration, but usually they promote an idea that's always about buying new clothes. And so that's not going to be a great influence moving forwards.
For sure.
And last one I'll say is to deep dive into yourself as well and your values, because if you find brands and websites that align with them, it gets a lot easier when you do come to shop for something new. So, for example, I love shopping on Stride because you can shop by the value. And if I want to find, no, it's an amazing website, because if I want to shop for something made in Australia, it's as easy as clicking Australian made, and it takes all the stress away from looking for something for hours online.
Yeah. It's very sweet of you. And in terms of some of the influencers and maybe websites or publications that you like to look to for inspiration, ethical fashion, what are some of yours? So to give you an example, I'm a big fan of Ethical Made Easy. I think that's a great resource there. With Jasmine. But do you have any other ones or any other individuals that you'd recommend if someone was looking for a bit more sort of Instagram inspiration or even just blog inspiration?
Let's see. Well, there's actually my top tip, or not tip, I suppose. The magazine that I love the most is called Peppermint Magazine. I stumbled across it when I first moved to Australia, and every single issue is filled with so much lovely content, including ethical fashion and ethical everything, really. So I would subscribe to that and find them on Instagram. I love the Ironic Minimalist, and there's also lots of people, for example, the Southside Hunter is one that comes to my mind, that share all of their secondhand finds. So it's awesome to get awesome to get accounts like that promote the idea that you can find amazing things for cheap prices, as well as buying things new.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll include the links to these accounts in the show notes, and I'll double check with a few of those, because that last one I actually hadn't heard of. So be interested to learn a little bit more about that, but I'll be sure to put them in the show notes. And then what one of the other things I'd like to learn from you is any encouraging words you have for our listeners moving forward. So you've already given us, a few tips and a few pieces of advice, but is there anything else that you'd love to share for some extra encouragement?
Yeah, absolutely. So my account, Be Kind Coco, and my whole blog started because I didn't know anything about this. I was coming in as a total beginner, and I feel like everyone on my blog and on my Instagram is going on this journey with me, and because of that, I don't feel ashamed to share the ups, share the downs, share the things that go wrong. And when I began, I was so overwhelmed by everything going on. I felt a huge pressure to change overnight and be the best person in the world. So I kind of came up with this quote to guide myself. And that is, it doesn't matter if you take it slow, it matters that you take a step. And all that really means is it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to make little changes. And it's amazing that you're making any changes at all. And every little thing adds up. And that kindness will morph the world around us. And every single stride we make matters. So when you finally look back, you will not believe how far you've come.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know you were a bit of a wordsmith, Chloe, with that amazing quote.
I
think I've seen you post that before, and I just assumed it was from somebody else. But
I checked Google and everything. I said it first.
Yeah, you said it first. Make sure you trademark that, because it's brilliant. I couldn't agree more, because I think the issue a lot of people have when they think about, even just adopting a more sustainable lifestyle, like not fashion orientated, just can be like trying to have more of a zero waste kitchen, for example. I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves and think they have to do it perfectly. When, like you said there, I think the aim should be to start acting better. So you don't need to be zero waste overnight. You just can slowly reduce your plastic consumption, stuff like that, and make positive changes as opposed to being the perfect consumer. So I think that's a fantastic way to look at it, Chloe. And thanks for sharing that. And
Thank
you. You're welcome. And just to wrap up, where can our listeners go to find out more about Chloe and Be Kind Coco?
Okay, so you can find me on my website, which is bekindcoco.com. On Instagram and YouTube, I'm just simply called Be Kind Coco. And actually on YouTube, I'm doing a video really soon, so it might be live by the time this goes out, which is eco kitchen tips. So I just realized that when you mentioned it.
Fantastic.
Everything I've learned over the past 3 years in one quick video.
That'll be brilliant. And just to clarify, it's Coco spelled with COCO. So to confirm, BEKIND COCO. Chloe, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for sharing your amazing insights and leaving us with that golden nugget of a quote that I'm sure everyone will take with them moving forward.
Thank you. It's amazing to talk to you.
Awesome, Chloe. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean the world. If you like what you heard, please leave a nice review. And if you have any feedback or want to recommend a guest, and yes, that can include you love yourself, please email me at jordan@stridestore.com.au.